Hi there, welcome to another Leaving Cert Ordinary Level Maths video. Today we'll continue with patterns and finding the general term of an arithmetic sequence. What is an arithmetic sequence? Well, it's a linear sequence, and that means that there is the same difference between each term in the sequence. So we can have a look at an example of one here. Maybe we'll go 3, 5, 7, 9, something like that. Importantly then, before we begin, is to have very clear what's the difference between a term number and a term value. I'm after writing down a sequence here, 3, 5, 7, and 9. These are values of the sequence. So the first value is 3, the second value is 5, third value is 7, and the fourth value is 9. So these are term values. But if we're talking about a sequence to someone, it's very useful to be able to give them a location in the sequence. I'm talking about the first number in the sequence, or I'm talking about the fourth number in the sequence. So we call those term numbers. And the first number in the sequence is called term 1. And the second number in the sequence is called term 2, term 3, term 4, so on. You can never have term 1.5 or 2 3/8. It's either term 1 or it's term 2 or term 3. They're in whole numbers. Similarly, you can never have term number -7 because the sequence starts with term number 1 and then it goes to term number 2 and it counts up. Using this example then, let's find the general term of this sequence. So with all of these, you want to begin by finding your common difference or your first difference. That is the difference between each of the terms. So 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 2 equals 7, 7 plus 2 equals 9. So my common difference, my first difference, is plus 2. A quick way of finding the general term then is to take your common difference, which is 2, and multiply it by n, and n stands for any term number in the sequence. So 2 times 1 should be the first term in the sequence. So 2 times 1 is 2. But if we look at our sequence, the first term isn't 2, it's actually 3. So what I need to do is I need to go 2n and add on an extra 1. So 2n plus 1 is the general term for this sequence. Tn stands for the general term. Let's test it out. I'm going to try and find term number 3 in the sequence, and I'm going to say T3. That's term number 3. 2n plus 1, I'm going to replace the n with 3 because I'm interested in the third term in the sequence. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 equals 7. So that is correct. The third term in the sequence is 7. What if we were to have a look at maybe term 4? Maybe that will break it. T4 equals 2n plus 1. Let's replace the n with 4 because we're looking for the fourth term in the sequence. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So that's correct again that the fourth term is 9. That's fine when it's small, easy to deal with sequences like this, but when we get to very large numbers and very large common differences, things can get a little bit more complicated. So for that, we have a formula, which is quite good. In the formula, a couple of things we need to know is that Tn is the general term, or it's also called the nth term, and that stands for any term in the sequence. So here my terms were 3, 5, 7, and 9. They're the term values. So any term value is Tn. Term number then will be the letter n. And the formula is given as Tn equals a plus n minus 1 times d. And a is the first term in the sequence. So think of the first letter in the alphabet. A comes first term, and D stands for difference. N, term number. This is also given to you in the log tables on page 22 under the sequences and series heading, and it says right here, arithmetic sequence, Tn equals A plus n minus 1 times D, and A is the first term, D is the common difference. And at the very top it also tells you in the following Tn is the nth term, so the general term. Using that then, we have an example. Find the nth term of the arithmetic sequence 7, 10, 13, 16. But for any of these questions, the first step is to find your first difference. 7 plus 3 is 10, plus 3 is 13, plus 3 is 16. So my first difference is going to be 3. Write out your formula and the information you know. first term is going to be 7, the difference is 3, n, well, question 1 I suppose asked us to find term 20, t20, so n is going to be 20. And let's fill that in. t20 equals 7 plus 20 minus 1 times 3, the difference. 20 minus 1 is 19. 19 times 3. t20 equals 64. So the 20th term in this sequence has a value of 64. Part 2 of the question, which term has a value of 97? So now we're not looking for Tn, we're looking for n. Again, start by writing out your formula. And the information you know. A is still 7, D is still 3. We don't know n. Tn has a value of 97. And then we can fill that back into our formula. N minus 1 multiplied by 3, because there's no plus or minus sign between the 3 and the bracket. So you multiply the n by 3, and gives you 3n, and you also multiply negative 1 by 3, gives you negative 3. Tidying up the right hand side, we get 4 plus 3n. Subtract 4 from both sides, so that you're left with only n's on the right. And then divide both sides by 3 to get 1n. And n equals 31, which means that the 31st term in the sequence has a value of 97. Part 3 of the question then asks us to show that 168 is not a term of the sequence. Exact same, write out your formula and the information you know. Again, we don't know the term number, but we do know the term value is supposed to be 168. And fill that in. This is very similar to the previous one, where I'm multiplying 3 by n minus 1. Subtract 4 from both sides. And then divide both sides by 3. Now it says that n equals 54.6, and we know that that can't be correct because the term numbers are whole numbers, so it would either be term number 54 or term number 55. I have an exercise here that you can pause the video for and have a go at, and I'll give you the solution in a minute. As with any of these problems, get that first difference. 6 plus 5 is 11, 11 plus 5 is 16, so my first difference is 5. Write down your formula and the information you know. The first term, A, is 6, the difference is 5. N, we don't know, and we're told which term has a value of 186, so we know the term value, Tn, is 186. Fill them in. N equals 37, which means that the 37th number in the sequence has a value of 186. This has been the general term of an arithmetic sequence. I hope you found it useful.